Hello and welcome to another episode of the Destiny Truthcast. This is episode number 54. I am Lost Souls, joined today as always by RedWingGirl. How are you doing today, RedWingGirl?
I'm hot as hell. It's like 9,000,000 degrees in Seattle, and it's just too hot.
Is it hotter than hell?
It's just too hot. I mean, I don't have air conditioning, so it's pretty stagnant. So if you hear any feedback, it's because my windows are open and I'm really hot.
Okay, we're not hearing any splashing in the pool?
No, that happened this morning.
Well, we have a returning guest today and a new guest. We have joining us again, HandsomDragon. How are you doing, Handsome?
I'm doing very well. I'd like to raise your 9 million degree Seattle weather with my 900 trillion degree Phoenix, Arizona weather. It is very hot here.
I heard it's so hot there, even the scorpions just give up and die.
That is very true. Very true. We went to the zoo a couple days ago, and we had to go like at 7:30 in the morning because that's the only time when like you won't die being outside. And we found we saw this like 6-foot snake, and it was just lying under like this little sprinkler system for like some of the plants, and it was just like, see, even the snakes don't want to. They need they're dying out here too. This is crazy.
Poor snakes. Maybe they'll curl up in a ball and start a fire or something. I don't like snakes.
Yeah, I'm not a snake fan either. I was perfectly okay with it being about 20 yards away.
Well, we also have with us here today, Painless Skipper 2. How are you doing today, Painless? And is it 8 trillion billion degrees where you're at?
I'm doing well. And yes, and I will raise you both North Carolinian humidity. Because you can be as hot as you want, but when you're sticking to yourself, that's when it becomes a problem.
Yeah, that humidity, man, that is a killer. I used to live in Michigan, and every time the summer came, if the humidity was high, it was almost unbearable.
Well, I don't know what to tell any of the three of you because I'm in St. Louis where normally the humidity is probably worse than anywhere. And it's the most beautiful day here, blue skies. I'm sorry, none of the three of you have that.
Yeah, you don't really have that in Phoenix. So I guess it's okay because I don't really know what I'm missing. So...
If nothing else, I can turn my fan on.
So, Painless, if you could, let the community know just a little bit about yourself.
I have been playing Destiny since the beta, and have mained a Warlock the whole time, because Glide is fancy. No, that's a lie. Glide sucks. But I am mostly a PvEer. My KD is a respectable, in quotes, 1.4 at its peak. Before I got a full-time job recently, I used to play strikes and raids all the time trying to get those new exotic elemental primaries, but that's mostly about it. I PvE unwillingly when forced to, or PvP rather, and other than that, mostly strikes and raids.
What's your favorite Destiny raid of the 4?
Vault of Glass will always be my OG. My favorite memory is 2 years ago, year 1, I sat down and said, okay guys, I have an hour to get this done. And we got it done in 35.
Wow, that's good.
So what did you think about the redone Vault of Glass? Did you like what they did with it? Were you a fan?
Well, once I recovered from the concussion that was beating my head against Templar Challenge for 5 hours the first night it came out, I quite liked it. Because once people figured out how to get good, as it were, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, sometimes that Templar challenge can be... I mean, it almost 100% is more challenging, I think, than Atheon. And doing the oracles.
Yeah, Atheon is more of a communication challenge more than anything else. Templar is how much time can you have the Templar pay attention to you without dying, and how do you make sure that shield bearer doesn't die going between points?
So what kind of guns do you use when you're raiding?
Up until I rediscovered how awesome Legendary Vision of Confluence used to be, it was a Future War Cult scout rifle with the Fatebringer roll. One of the higher impact sniper rifles and a rocket launcher. Just whatever I needed to suit the elements.
So you're not a fan of the sleeper?
So, I got to the point in that quest where I give the core to the gunsmith. The next day, I get the first step and I said, nope, I'm done.
I forgot, what step is that?
Well, it bugged and restarted itself. And I decided that I was not going to wait for the public events with less than 3 months before Destiny 2, so I do not have a sleeper.
Oh, that sucks. That's a fun gun to use. It's actually kind of fun to use in PvP, too.
all of the sleeper stuff, I just have to watch it now. Watch people blow themselves up off their bubbles and such not.
Yeah, I think they do that to me sometimes in raids on purpose. I think they go and they see me standing there at Atheon and someone runs up and I think they have a secret signal to pop a bubble on top of me and make me kill myself. I can't prove it, but I think it happens.
I used to do that to people just to be a troll back in like vanilla during the loot cave days. There'd be like 6 guys just standing and waiting for the enemies to pop up all the way through rockets, and I just wait and pop my bubble as soon as they came out and just watch them blow each other up. It was pretty fun. I got a few nasty messages about it. But...
So, Dragon, it's good to have you back on the podcast today. How have you been?
I've been good. Took a little while to make it back here. Scheduling's always a little difficult, but I'm glad to be back. Looking forward to having fun.
And we had, for those that didn't hear the first time you're on or might not know you, you join us from the Destiny Lorecast.
That is correct. I think you had, was it last week you had an on Pig on? So
yes, it was.
Hopefully I should be able to follow him up pretty well.
Yeah, it was a very, very educating and interesting discussion last week, particularly his thoughts as he was watching the Destiny 2 reveal and seeing the lore presented up in the cinema. So I guess I want to just go to that for a minute because we actually were able to meet you at the Destiny reveal event, and that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it was really awesome. It was like I still like thinking back on it. It's such a surreal event that happened. It's like I talk to these people online now, and it's like I can't believe I met them, a month ago. It's still kind of crazy to think about.
So, what were your thoughts as you watched the reveal and the Zavala story and the wall being built and all that? We got Anand's reaction last week where he was freaking out that it was six fronts and whatnot. What were you thinking, and what was your reaction to all of it?
It was, it was kind of hard to believe at first because, playing from vanilla. One of the things that's been criticized a lot from the way Bungie did things was their cutscenes or lack thereof, and they didn't have very many of them. And the ones they did have didn't really have a lot of depth to them. Once we got deeper into like Taken King and Rise of Iron, they definitely were getting better and better and better. But when we got that Zavala trailer, like that was 10 times, if not 100 times better than anything we've seen to this point. The depth of, him being his first time being raised as a guardian, and him dying and being raised again, dying, and so many things about, seeing the origins of the wall being built. Things that before we'd only read about, and or not even fully read about, but were hinted at in Grimoire, things like that. It was so cool to actually see it happening, and that's like one of the. I know there's a lot of kind of debate in the community about Grimoire now and not being in Destiny 2, but if they can get that depth throughout Destiny 2 where you're giving details and really diving deep into these stories, I think these cinematics are going to be awesome and be really good for the lore community.
And Painless, what was your reaction to the Destiny 2 reveal? Did you watch it as it happened, the stream, or?
I remember I was somewhat busy that day, but I was able to catch bits and pieces. The trailer was certainly interesting. Okay, that might be downplaying a little bit. Interesting is such a meh word. But it was definitely exciting to watch. Zavala as a character, I feel like needs some of the most development out of the 3 Vanguard. It was so long ago. I'm just trying to think. I don't have the same lore affinity that Dragon does, so I didn't recognize 6 fronts at first, but I definitely enjoyed watching it.
One of the things that I haven't seen it a second time. I only actually watched it while we were at the event, and it was really, really loud. I mean, like, so loud that it was hard to pay attention for me. But one of the things that I noticed a lot that I hope we're going to see more of in D2 were all of the people, which one of the things that kind of bothers me about D1 is that, you go to the tower and these are these social areas and you see a few people like walking around, random, like even at the reef, you'll see the Queen's guards or whatever walking around and talking here and there. And I hope that they have more interactions with NPCs and not just the robots, but just like other people that you can interact with, or at least even if you can't interact with them, just like more, populated areas. Like, they showed a lot of like villages and little towns and buildings and things, and I hope that there's areas that we can go into and see actual people in these areas, because that was one of the things that kind of stood out to me was, all of these people, like where are all these people, I mean, you kind of look down from the tower and you see all these like cities and towns, but you never get to actually get a sense of what's going on down there. And I just kind of hope that they kind of bring a little bit more of that in the experience, during the social areas, not obviously in strikes and things of that sort, but just where we can, go in common areas.
Like before I played Destiny, like the games like I played Halo, but the games that really kept my interest from like a PvE or story standpoint were games like Skyrim and Mass Effect. And that's something I thought they did really well as far as vendors or NPCs in the wild. Like if you're playing Skyrim, like every town you go to, there's a dozen different, if not 50 different people that you can talk to, have unique conversations with. And obviously that's a different game than Destiny, so you can't expect probably that much depth, but to have something of that sort where you could go up to someone and actually have like a meaningful dialogue, or where they send you on a unique path or something, instead of just the NPCs who stand there, sell you some gear every now and then, give you a reward package every now and then. It would be really cool to see them in kind of a more alive universe.
Yeah, building off that, I was playing Skyrim less than an hour ago, and just running through one of the cities, I mean, not every NPC has like a full-blown conversation. You push A to talk to them, you don't engage a conversation, but you get a voice line. And there's a few of those voice lines that you can get. Because, I mean, if you think about D1 now, how many NPCs that you do not have a transactional relationship with, which is to say, like, you don't buy something from them, are that really developed? I mean, I'm trying to think. Like, the Sweeper bot and its moment of existential dread during Festival of the Lost? I'm racking my brain. But if they can build
there's not many.
Yeah, and I think it comes down to, do you really want the gamer to focus on the shooting aspect of it, the PvP part and the PvE part, do you want them to have sort of a full experience, an RPG kind of experience in addition to everything else? And I kind of feel more or less that D1 sort of evolved to its sort of final conclusion of PvP refinement and repetitive strikes. They did better with the economy and how we were able to get materials. But the sad part about it is that, for most of us that kind of like to go out and play patrol, we sort of look back fondly on grinding for some of those materials because, it kind of past time, but I kind of want more of that. I don't want to struggle with grinding materials, but I kind of hope this time, that there's a lot more interesting things that we can see out in the wild, as well as in the tower or whatever location we're going to be, going to a social area.
Yeah, I definitely don't mind. Like, I never minded the grind necessarily of vanilla, because it felt like I was always doing it for a reason. Like whether it was materials, you had to get the materials to upgrade your armor or your weapons. It always felt like it was worth the grind to be able to have the materials or have the weapon parts, armor parts, whatever it was. Whereas a lot of the kind of the grind they did for like the sword quest, it didn't really have that same satisfaction. So I'm hoping they kind of find with Destiny 2 where you still bring that grind back a little bit, so you feel like you have to, like, you earned something, or you had to work hard for something, but where it actually means something in the end.
See, I'm the exact opposite. I like the sword quest grind because you got the badass sword at the end, and I know I'm in the minority with that, but that's probably my favorite time period and favorite moments of the 3 years of Destiny is when RWG and I went and did all the grinding to get those swords for me. It just was a lot of fun. But going to the year one leveling of weapons, I thought it was something interesting that Luke Smith had said in his Kotaku interview, where he actually rage quit at one point because he got a drop and couldn't actually use it right away. And so he turned off his machine and said, we have to fix this. And I kind of don't want to go back to that. I like being able to get a weapon and use it and not have to spend a day or whatever leveling it up like we did in vanilla before it's usable over what we have previously.
Well, the interesting thing about that and his experience is that the feedback community had been providing negative comments in regards to the unnecessary grind that was happening in order to rank up a weapon. I mean, if you remember back then, the nodes on a weapon to upgrade it was unbelievably complicated. I mean, it took lots of materials, lots of events, lots of turning in bounties and engrams and all kinds of things in order to get those things completed. So they have made improvements. You can apply motes and it takes a second to upgrade a gun. So that's a good thing. They did make a lot of improvements, but I hope that what I find striking is that it took him to play that, for that to happen to him personally, for him to go back and make changes. Like, were they not aware of that when they rolled out the game? And were they not reading the feedback that was provided about how laborious it was? I mean, it just kind of like, it's sort of telling how, that change actually took place.
Yeah, and I think in that industry, sometimes it is hard just to really understand the situation without actually seeing it for yourself or experiencing it for yourself. So that just might have been the same deal. He might have just been like, oh, is it really that big of a deal? And then actually experiences it. Okay, yeah, that's a big deal.
So one of the few things that that recently came out was the emblems that are going to go forward based on your tenure with D1. And have you guys had a chance to see the emblems and what they look like, and actually how they're displayed all the way on the top of your screen as opposed to just up in the right-hand corner?
I have, and again, I'm very upset that I made an account transfer, that I changed accounts at the start of year 2. But generally, I don't think those emblems are going to be as great as people think they're going to be. Because if you think about the Moment of Triumph emblems now, and this is just my own personal opinion, I think the Atheon Challenge emblem is way cooler looking than any of the Moment of Triumph emblems, not Age of Triumph, previous moments, as well as Bungie loyalty emblems. Like, I don't know if, like the Pathfinder sign for playing 4 Bungie games. I still think the Challenge emblem is way cooler than that. So I think it is cool that those emblems exist. Cooler ones are going to exist in D2. So I don't know if any of what I just said made any kind of point, but those are my thoughts.
Yeah. Do you think that they didn't go far enough with what they're doing to recognize D1 players in D2?
If they can animate those emblems, they totally should. Because just like a circle that's gold is all well and good, but if I can get a glass triangle, then I'm going to use that instead. So I don't think they have gone far enough. I think it is cool that they're doing it. I think it also could be done better.
What about you, Dragon?
I think if the emblems are all we were going to get, I would agree. Like, they could definitely do better. But like, and I had this conversation with some of the guys in my clan, and like, they were, after that post, they were kind of raging and like seriously, I put 2,000 hours and all I get is a couple emblems that are not even going to be good in 2 months into the game. And I was like, well, that's just a little like tease basically of what they're doing. It's like what I think Deej said, shed a little light. So I think there's something bigger planned. And I even I don't know if anybody else got an email from Bungie about it, but it was really weird because it showed up in my inbox, and like on the subject title, like right before I clicked on it, it had an interesting text, but then I could never find it on the actual message. But it said something along the lines of your monument or something. I took a screenshot. I have to find it exactly, but it's very interesting wording. So like, I'm curious if veterans in D2 will actually have some sort of like almost like a kiosk or something that displays some of their triumphs. Or it says your very own memorial in Destiny 2. So it'd be interesting if it's like an actual memorial that you're able to put like on the farm or something.
I remember getting something similar. Okay, yeah, subject title, Painless Skipper, Preserve Your Legend, sent on July 23rd. Yeah, D2 memorialization. That's all I'm going to bother reading for the sake of time.
Well, they did. That is one thing that people really wanted, was a way to display sort of your, rewards or whatever that you've gotten, your achievements. So maybe they will have something like that. That would be kind of cool.
I think, and this is just my pipist pipe dream, I think the best way for them to memorialize that is, okay, so they've already said that Homecoming isn't the first mission. There's still a mission before that. I think the best way for them to memorialize that, and this is definitely not going to happen considering how late in development D2 is, but I don't know if any of you have played Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, but is if a fall hurts harder when you start from a position of power. So if you played Mission 1 and Homecoming with everything that you have now, and then after Homecoming, then it's all gone, that's when it stings, and that's how you memorialize it, because it's like, oh look, I've had all this before. I mean, I don't, but I had it. I got to play with Vision of Confluence or Fatebringer in the first few missions.
Here's how I would like them to recognize all the players that played D1 and D2 is I would like them, if you played D1, to give us all a special exotic rocket launcher that is named the Smoggy Pluto. I think that would be the ultimate, just perfect send off to D1 within D2.
That's a throwback meme right there.
That'd be pretty funny.
Well, I'm all about the shaders, so I'd like some shaders, or whatever they're going to use now for the way you color your character's armor.
I think Smoggy Pluto would be a cool shader too, actually. I'm just saying.
So one of the things I noticed on the picture that Deej released was how high what's that stuff? You know what I'm talking about?
Glimmer.
The glimmer.
Oh, glimmer.
Did you see how high the level of glimmer was on his thing?
Yeah, I remember he said afterwards, I guess there was fine print that none of the values were official or anything like that, to only focus on the emblem, but that could just be throwing us kind of off the trail in a way, because they don't want to announce that yet.
Yeah, and my thought was, I mean, yeah, that's a lot of glimmer, but also I don't know if it's worth getting super amped for. Okay, 34,000 glimmer. Congratulations. You joined us in the modern RPG without arbitrary low limits on your resources.
Yeah, but regardless, it would be nice to not have a very low cap.
Yeah, I hope they up the I'm not without knowing how they're doing marks or glimmer exactly in Destiny 2. I hope they definitely raise the levels. It's if you play frequently, you reach those caps very quickly, and it can be quite tiresome just trying, buying a legendary engram every 2 days just to get some space.
So another thing that they talked about recently is this is an Xbox thing where we're going to finally get the PS exclusives in October, which is just ridiculous.
I agree 100%.
If I could quote the comedian, Shotgun, aha, 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 that's funny.
Yeah, I put the blame with this on Sony, though. I think that it's something that it's a crap move on their part to have that in there where we can't get it until after the game is said and done with. So I think, I get it, Bungie and Activision, made this deal as well, but I think Sony stipulating that, I think that was kind of just a shit move on their part.
Yeah, and I was kind of hopeful when they started talking about it that they were going to announce with all the August 1st stuff, kind of signifying the end of Destiny 1, or at least the cumulative stats, and then kind of moving on to Destiny 2. I was hoping that August, they would be like, okay, in August 1st, Xbox will get all these exclusives, and they'd be like, all right, at least we get a month to use them before Destiny 2 comes out. But then they announced October, and I was just like, oh, perfect. Guess I'll never use them.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that I have to, after D2 is released, and I'm going to be grinding D2, go into D1 and like try to get those weapons just to see how they are is just completely unappealing. So basically, no one's ever going to do it. And it just kind of puts the whole cloud over the rest of all of the exclusives that we're not going to get in Xbox for D2 either. And I've accepted the fact that the few things that I won't see in D2, that's just the price to pay, I guess, for having an Xbox. But to me, the value of moving over to a PS4 when I have so much invested into Xbox, my friends and my clan and my community that I share all these events with, not only in Destiny but in other games, just isn't worth the trade-off. So I've just given up on it, but I just think it's just overall between the gaming community in general, it's just really bad. I think it's bad for PlayStation, and I think it's bad for Xbox.
Yeah, it's definitely a decidedly anti-consumer practice on Sony, Bungie, Activision, and we can play eeny, meeny, miny, mo with who gets the blame there. But if nothing else, that is one less strike where we have to deal with Taken.
Actually, the Taken are being D2, so...
So that just kind of brings me to another topic that I want to talk about, and I don't know, Handsome, I know you're on Xbox. Painless, are you on PlayStation or Xbox?
I am on Xbox as well. And yes, Souls, I know they are in D2. I'm just saying that's one less time we have to deal with.
So I don't know how invested you guys are on your gaming setups, but I try to have the latest and the greatest, right? So I've been holding off buying. I had the original Xbox One. I had the first edition, and my Xbox right now is perfectly fine. Runs great. I have no issues with it. I purchased a TV that has, the lowest input lag, and it goes really well with how I'm playing on Xbox One. But since Scorpio is coming out, or whatever they're calling it, I refuse to call it the One X. I'm considering buying a 4K TV, and I'm wondering if you guys are considering doing the same thing so that we have the best possible experience in Destiny and of course other games that require 4K technology.
I have a 4K TV right now. I was able to convince the wife last Christmas we needed that, but I'm not convinced yet that I'm going to get the One X, just because I've also just recently got the One S, and so I don't know if there's enough there for me to justify spending, the $500 to get the new one. And I'm also going to be getting a new PC here soon, which I plan on playing some Destiny on that. So I'm not really sure. For me personally, it's not the number one priority to get like the top of the line stuff. I figure my One S will play 1080p, 30 FPS, and will look good enough.
As a college student, I would need to probably rent out my soul to random passerby to get the money for a 4K TV.
Just sell a kidney.
So I could sell 2 kidneys, and actually no, that's one. Anyway, so that is in no way on my priorities, and I'm not really sure why it should be either. If I want to play on a gaming PC that calls itself an Xbox, I would rather just play on a PC. I mean, I have an Xbox because I love Halo. Halo has been my thing, and that is why Xbox. I don't feel the need to upgrade it to a 4K Xbox One Alphabet. It works fine, and I see no reason to change. They're not creating PS4 Pro, Xbox One X exclusives, so not my concern.
Well,
It's
one of the
definitely
things
on my. I was going to say it's definitely on my wish list of things to do, but I think in order to keep the wife happy, I can't make it a priority at this point.
Yeah, I mean, it's really expensive. I mean, the one that I'm looking at is $2,000, and it's the best solution for the Scorpio. But here's the dilemma that I have, is that I'm going to get this game, and I'm going to probably have played all of everything, most of everything, by the time Scorpio comes out. So, and I'm sort of on the fence with the same way you are, Dragon. Like, the One S the S is like perfectly suitable for everything that you're going to want to experience Destiny, but the Scorpio is going to be, I think, overall long term the better option. So I'm sort of like, it's just kind of the timing is so poor when the game's coming out and when the new console's coming out that, I really just kind of, I'm going to be really bummed out that I'm not going to be able to experience it in the 4K and right away.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like, I wish, again, if it was coming out, end of August or early September, I'd probably be more actively trying to figure out a way to get it, just to have that experience from the beginning. But it is kind of a bummer, like you said, that we'll be playing for at least 2 months probably before the Scorpio even comes out. And so you've already played most of the content, if not all the content at that point.
It sounds to me like a decided non-factor at that point. If it's a month delay and you feel like waiting for it would interrupt your fun experience, I don't see what the point in waiting is. I mean, we could wish for it to come out sooner, but I mean, wish into one hand, play strikes with the other, and see which one gets you more loot first.
Yeah, it's just kind of disappointing, I guess. I don't know. I mean, it's a big investment, and I'm not just doing it for Destiny. It's for other things too, obviously. But it's just like, man, I wish that they would come out with it a little bit sooner. But either way, so one other thing that I heard recently is the import of your characters from D1 to D2 is not going to be is not going to allow you to be able to change the way your character looks, which leads me to believe that overall there's not going to be any way to change our characters in D2 the way that we can't change them now in D1, and that to me is just a real big, huge disappointment. Like, why can we not do that?
So what did you hear exactly again?
I've been reading a couple things that people have been saying that there's not going to be, or they haven't come out with any way of confirming whether or not we're going to be able to change our characters upon import. And so because there's no definition or there's no defined, yes or no, I'm assuming that we're not going to have any way to change any of our characters when we import them over.
I have some good news for you. So this was on Twitter. Someone asked Mark Noseworthy, and they asked, if I choose to create a new character in D2 and I'm on the same console, will I still receive my legacy emblems? And he replied, yes, your veteran honors, like those emblems, are tied to your console account, not any character. And he says, I'm likely rolling a new main as well.
Right, I saw that too. So then that means that you're not going to be able to change your character. That means that you have to create a new character if you want to change your character. So it's all good and fine that it's legacy, but you're not going to be able to change it, and that's the whole thing. It's like, just because I create a new character in D2, in a month or 10 days later, I mean, just in Grand Theft Auto, I've changed my character's looks like 10 times in 3 days. Like, why can't that be a thing?
Oh, okay, yeah, I see what you mean now. Yeah, hopefully we get something like that. I know kind of like a barber shop or something has been on the forums and stuff a lot, and I don't know. I'm not sure what the hiccup there is with that and why they haven't done anything with it, but that would be really cool to see.
I know Skyrim has its face sculptor with a bad attitude, but I'm personally not sure if this is worth being concerned about, because we already know that no gear is going to be transferred and no legacy rewards are tied to characters. So, at least for me, my only reason to import a character would be my main looks somewhat like me if he were far better muscled and taller. But functionally, there's no difference between a legacy character and a new one, so I'm not that concerned, and I'm not sure people should be.
I think that it would have been something where a compromise. I mean, I think that people, you're telling this story of, I mean, it's a continuation. This isn't, it is a new game, but it's also a continuation of the story. I mean, this is the fight we've been fighting for the last 3 years. We had the mission with the Cabal ship on the Dreadnought sending out the signal. Obviously this is what's come of that, and the Cabal coming and, coming for the light and yada yada. So it's an evolving story, which has been the characters we've rolled the last 3 years. So to go into D2 and say that, oh, if you want to change your looks, well, just roll a new character. I think that for a lot of people that have been invested, and granted, it's not everyone, and there was a lot of division within the community over this when it came down that we'd lose our gear, basically lose everything. But they said at that point, you'll still be able to carry your character over. You won't have the gear, or the weapons, or any of your shit, but you'll be able to carry your character over. And so they understand that that means something to people. So to have the only option to do a little recustomization be to delete, basically delete and start over, I think makes no sense. And I'm with you on this, RedWingGirl. I think that, and it came down, Paul Tassi, when they announced this, he's like, the one thing that people wanted to be able to change their looks is the one thing that they're, making us keep when they let us transfer. So yeah, I'm with you, and I think it's a mistake if that's true, because I assumed that we'd be able to recustomize, but if we have to delete and start over, I think it's a mistake. That's my thoughts on it.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's just, it doesn't make any sense. I mean, the whole thing just bothers me in that we're not continuing, and it's just, we're just starting a new game, and I've accepted that fact, but it just kind of bums me out that you're not going to be able to change your character.
But we are continuing, and that's why it makes no sense to me, because they've built in the fact that we're losing everything into the story, and okay, you and I were on the side of, it sucks to lose all our stuff back then, but we reconciled with it, whatever, we're keeping our characters. But how they're doing it, he's coming, he's destroying the tower, we're losing our vaults, we're gonna lose our light and have to reacquire our light. Okay, so they're doing that with it and building that into the story. But again, it still makes it that continuation the way we're doing it. It is a continuation of D1, and it's going into this Tale of the Cabal. So I think it's 100% a mistake for them to not embrace that, and to, like I said, to make us delete if we want to recustomize. I think just goes in the face of everything else they've done in building a story around how we're starting over.
Yeah, I think the more evidence you look at, the more it seems, at least on Bungie's end, they do not see this as a continuation. They see it more as Chapter 1 and D1 was your Chapter 0 or your prologue. Because, I mean, story-wise, yes, it is a continuation, but D1 was more of maybe like a book of 3 short stories. Like Guardian versus Blackguard, Guardian versus Taken King, Guardian versus Siva. And gameplay-wise, they're not really treating it like a continuation either. Or lore-wise, sorry, my words are going everywhere right now, and I'm sure Dragon would have some input on this as well. But like Exo Stranger, the direct quote of words like darkness are getting axed, exploration of a lot of other motivations. They're more treating it as like a hard reset, or maybe that's the wrong word, but they're definitely treating it as a partitioned. I think that's what I'm trying to go for. They're treating it as a partitioned entity. And so that's in their design philosophy, and I don't think we should be too surprised by that.
I'm trying to look at this as kind of like similar to how the Star Wars movies are coming out right now, in a way, where you have, the one that came out, and that was, episode 7, I think it was, and then they came out the year later with Rogue One. So they're both Star Wars, but the stories aren't necessarily built off of each other. Like, there might be some characters that overlap, or some other things that overlap or are connected, because it's still Star Wars, but they're not necessarily built off the other. Whereas the one coming out, I don't know if it's this year or next year, that's the continuation of episode 7. And I think that's kind of where this is, where what I got from Luke, the more I read it from that one article, was like, at some point they're going to explain what the darkness is. Maybe they'll even talk about the Queen again. Maybe they'll even talk about the Exo Stranger again. But D2 isn't that story. D2 is the Cabal. D2 is Gaul. So that's, when I think about it like that, I don't get as upset about the lore changing how it seems to be, as long as I think of it as being a more of a separate story than the continuing story.
Yeah, but again, and he told us what Destiny 3 is going to be. He told us the next game will be the story of the darkness, and that they wanted to tell the story of the light in D2 so that you understand the light before we get to the darkness and why they want to destroy the light. And I understand all that, but when we go from D2 to D3, is it going to be another hard reset where we lose everything and start over? Because again, I understand the side stories of, the different Star Wars and whatnot, but this is a different thing. This is our guardians that are going to go through this fight in Destiny 2 against Gaul. We're losing our light, we're regaining our light. We're gonna, fight him, and probably, he's gonna be the first raid, and then probably, whoever he answers to is gonna end up showing up in one of the expansions, and so we'll end up fighting them or whatever happens. But at the end of all this, we've regained our light and found out what the light means to our guardians. So when we go to D3, is it a brand new guardian that starts over there? Because again, it seems like they're putting this, and I understand the issue 0 of a comic book for D1 because there were 100 different stories that all went nowhere, and so with D2 they're focusing it. But again, this is setting us on that journey. So, I don't see it as it should be starting over and losing everything and losing our characters. From D1. Like I said, I think that's an important thing to a lot of people, that connection, and regardless of what they feel about what Destiny 1 was, I think that it wouldn't take anything for them to be able to allow us to re-customize our looks of existing characters. So I don't know, it's just my take on it.
Well, what I would really like is a better, more detailed explanation about what it means to actually start a new character for D2. So I understand that your legacy character and all of whatever it's done will be maintained, but what exactly does that mean? Like, we know there's not Grimoire, but what are you essentially carrying over in D2 then? When you create a new character, like, what exactly does it mean or doesn't mean? I guess I just don't really understand it.
I think that's something they may explain a little bit more as we get closer, but it might just be something that they just don't plan on telling us and want us to kind of figure out on our own, which I don't know if that's the best idea. I think if they want people to kind of almost begin this episode 1 now, after your comic book 0, they need to give us a reason why we're starting fresh.
Yeah, if the past is anything to go by, saying, oh, you'll figure it out, and kind of drip feeding through third parties has not gone well for Bungie in the past. I mean, I'm thinking back to Dark Below and that Game Informer article where they just kind of casually said, oh yeah, you're resetting your exotics, no big deal, and how well that went over. So I think from a public relations standpoint, Bungie can't afford, but it's not in their best interest to have a lot of these questions be answered with kind of shrugs for much longer. I think once the beta comes out, we'll get some answers, and I think between the intervening days we'll get some answers, but I think the longer the shrugging silently period goes on, the more confused and disinterested people will become.
Well, it's just,
I agree.
It's such a huge, statement to me. Why import your character if you can just have all the same benefits of that and create a new one? Like, what would be, why even have that as a thing? Like, why would Bungie even just say, give you the option to import it? Like, I mean, it just seems, it doesn't make sense to me. I guess I'm just not fully understanding, even he's not going to do it. He's just going to create a new character. So, So it's like, why are we even bothering importing existing characters over? If they're so meaningless in their value, then what's the point?
Maybe they'll let us name it. I mean, I care more about my High Elf in Skyrim Lorelei than I do about Painless Skipper 2, Warlock with a Vault of Glass challenge emblem. So, I mean, maybe if they let us name it, that'll help.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that have no attachment at all to their characters. I mean, a lot of people will tell you because they don't talk, they don't really communicate, they don't have you don't have a closeness to the character because you can't really relate to it. And so I get it that a lot of people don't have an attachment to their characters, so that this really doesn't affect them, but I do. I have a lot of attachment to my character, and that's why I haven't changed them. So all of us are different. I just think I just need a little bit more better clarity on what is the benefit for importing your original character versus just starting over.
Yeah, I think one thing to consider too with Noseworthy's tweet is he may not have the multiple characters like we do. So like we might read that tweet as, well, I have a Warlock, a Hunter, and a Titan. So if I say I'm going to change my main, like that would imply that I'm going to delete or not import my current character. Whereas for him, maybe he only has a Hunter. And so in his mind, when he says that, he's thinking, I'm going to be a Warlock in D2. So it might just have a different meaning to him than how we read it.
Right.
If he's only got one character, he is not playing his own game to the fullest extent. That's all I'm going to say about that.
As long as he keeps working 60 hours a week building this game, he can have one character in my mind.
Yeah, that is also a very reasonable point.
That was something I remember. I'm going to blank on his name. Noosk, he's been on Crystal Radio before, but he's talked about how it's kind of frustrating when like he'll see players like posting how many hours played they have, and he'll go to his character and it'll be like 700, 800. But then in his mind, he's like, but I played 10 hours a day at work for 3 months straight, but those don't go on my account. He's like, I play just as much, it just doesn't show.
So speaking of characters, I want to get to something that's been a discussion, particularly the last few days on the forums, which is the subclass changes. And it's another something that came out of Dado's video that I was really not a fan of. And the talk is that they're dumbing down play, dumbing down the subclasses, that they're a lot of people say they look boring and yada yada. And so first just want to get Painless and Dragon, your thoughts on the subclasses now with the streamlined perk trees.
I'm kind of torn, to be honest. And this is one of those things. Like I've talked to Mercules a little bit, and in fact from Destiny, my Massive Breakdown podcast. And my thing is, like, it could go either way at this point. Like on one hand, I dislike that they're taking away some of the choices. The way it is now is your build is completely interchangeable. Like you can, especially like as like a Void someone who plays a Void Walker a lot. Like there's a lot of different aspects to that you can change, mix and match depending on if I'm wearing the Ophidian aspects, I'm going to change some of the things because maybe they don't stack. And I feel like they're taking that away a little bit. But then on the other hand, this will make it a heck of a lot easier for the sandbox team to balance. And I think that was a big point in the PvP community, at least, that it took a long time to balance. Sometimes perks would be OP for months and months without getting changed, and having these clusters will make it a lot easier, because then you can just hit the whole cluster instead of having to do the entire subclass and things like that. But I'm definitely looking forward to trying it. I think it makes it unique in your choices now, where you have to you might say I like 2 of the nodes in that one and 2 of the nodes in this one, but you have to decide, okay, during this raid, which 2 nodes are going to be more important. All right, during PvP, which nodes are going to be more important? So you have to make those conscious choices.
I have a similarly mixed reaction. with some slightly different reasons. I can definitely, a lot of changes in this game I can see being made for balance purposes. So yes, it's definitely easier to balance builds based out of a block of 4 perks and that's it. And having grenades be separate and your jumps be separate. It's just easier to balance those that way. But I don't know or expect, I don't think anyone is familiar with Dota 2 at all. But I'm trying to think of the best way to put this because it's not an easy explanation. But basically every character, you can build them multiple different ways depending on your needs. So if I'm playing an Ember Spirit, for instance, you can run around and beat people up with your swords, or you can blow them up with magic damage, and that's a choice you have to make. And you can change that very fine-tuned based on your situation. So as someone who appreciates defined builds, but with flexibility where there needs to be, I'm not entirely sold on it.
So I have a couple different thoughts on it. And the first one, I will ask you your opinion on this, Dragon, which is the talk of it's simplifying the play and making play dumbed down. And you played Destiny 2, and I did not get dumbed down or simplified from what we played, because we actually had more choices of how we could approach any situation in the actual game, because we had the additional support ability cooldowns on each of the classes. So we had improved supers, we still had our jumps, our melees, and our grenades, but we also had that other cooldown. And it really evolved play for me, made it much more dynamic, made all the engagements more dynamic with that choice. So I'm curious your thoughts on that and what you got out of the actual play with the new subclasses.
I agree with you. I don't think it was, from what I played, that it was dumbed down at all. I think playing it, there was definitely I remember saying at the event, like, it felt slower and faster at the same time. And it felt slower in that some of the TTKs were slower. Like, it took a little bit longer to kill, but it felt like your time, and like the guard, you didn't move quite as fast. Like, they took away the skating and the warlock surfing, but it's like you had to make your tactical decisions had to be very quick. You were constantly thinking, because if you can't move as fast, doesn't mean you don't have to react as fast. And I think these clusters are kind of the same thing. It's like they might not add, I don't think it dumbs it down, but I don't think it might not add to it as much as some of the top players might like. They might want that specific choice where they can pick exactly what they want, and it might make it easier. But I by all means don't think it dumbs it down or makes it, or takes away any of the skill involved. If anything, it'll kind of decrease that skill gap, because good players are going to be better with those specific perks than average players.
Well, here's my other thing, going to the flip side, which is the things that are being taken from the trees and putting it to the two set trees now, is that one, a lot of what we're losing is the things like the armor, the recovery, and the agility. But we're not really losing those. They're moving those to our gear, into our actual armor sets. So they're being removed from the class trees, but they're going to the armor itself. Beyond that, we know pretty much nothing about still so much of Destiny 2. I mean, we don't know how we're going to level. We don't know how light level's going to work or any of that, the economy. But another thing we don't know is we haven't seen any perks on weapons for real. We've seen a couple, but most all of that was locked. We couldn't really look at when we were at the event, and all the armor was locked. We couldn't inspect it and see what was on it. And so what, to me, and I don't know if this is where they are going to go with this, but it seems like this is an opportunity, by simplifying our actual class trees, to really put some exciting perks on our gear. People have screamed, make exotics feel exotic again. Again, this is an opportunity where, you're saying, Dragon, that there's a lot of things where, they stack and you get a piece of exotic gear in D1 and it gives you a perk that you already have on your skill tree. So you're switching off and not using that anymore and equipping a different one instead. And, using them in conjunction. So what if in D2, this allows them to really put a lot of just kind of badass things on the gear itself, on the exotics, where, instead of building, by simplifying the skill trees on the characters, they can really amp up everything else without breaking the balance of the game. And again, we have no idea. And so I think it's premature for everyone to say, that, oh, this is ruining this is ruining that, because we don't know what the full extent of it is. And I think that what we're going to see is when they open up what is on the perk trees and what exotics and stuff can do, I think we're going to see that we're going to be surprised by what we have in D2.
Yeah, from what I've heard about the perks, I mean, you could construe it as a simplifying, but it's also worth entertaining the idea that it's a tightening of the experience, because we know nothing about Sentinel, and Striker stuff doesn't come to mind, but I know they were talking about Arc Strider, and I don't have the source off the top of my head, but they were talking about the dodge, like one tree is about dodge melee, so that build is focused on being very fast, unpredictable, being a pain in the ass to whoever's trying to track a moving target. And then there's the Dawnblade's Angel of Light based build, where it's all about being airborne, which sounds like the worst build ever in PvP, because now you're just a giant flaming target. But it's worth considering that in removing some of the extraneous stuff, they're tightening the experience and making it, I don't want to say streamlined, but that's the only word I have right now. They're tightening it to streamline it better, and just make the builds better, because the only builds I can think of, really, off the top of my head for Warlock at least, are Viking Funeral, Touch of Flame, Sunsinger, and Energy Drain Warlock, or Voidwalker. And that's just a selection of 2 perks out of I don't know how many. So that's maybe 2 perks that create a build out of a pool of 18 or whatever. Replacing that with 8 perks and 4 create each build makes it easier to balance for one, but also gives players a better idea of what their character does. So if you're playing, I'll just call it a slippery Arc Strider. If you're playing a slippery Arc Strider, you know that you need to be getting in people's faces and being a problem, because you can dodge melee, dodge melee, dodge melee ad infinitum.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to say is that, which would you rather have? Would you rather have, the current D1 setup where, you're getting, maybe an extra grenade or an extra melee from your exotic gear, and you're setting up your build within your class tree how you want it? Or would you, if you could have the D2 streamlined and have it where this piece of gear that you get can have some really like game changing, perks on it, and that's how we define our builds, through our gear and what we can swap out there. To me, that seems like it would be something that would be more fun and more engaging for me.
That's only true if there are ways to go in that armor and select how you want that armor to perform for you. But if it's RNG kind of, one perk drop kind of thing, and you're able to perform better in PvP because you have a really awesome roll armor, that's not going to bode well.
No,
as a class.
I'm not talking on all. I'm talking exotics. I'm talking on the exotic armor, where you can equip one piece of exotic armor, and just like the one exotic weapon, where it really makes it a defined choice, and kind of like exotics felt to an extent when Destiny released, where when you had things like the original Vex or Suros or a Pocket Infinity or a Galahorn, it was a real choice of where you wanted that advantage. And I think this is an opportunity with D2 to really ramp up the exotic armor with like serious game-changing perks, where do I want this one that's on my chest, or do I want this one that's on my helmet, or whatever, just real choices of, do I want this or this, where it's something substantial and it makes you really have to think where you want that advantage. I think that's kind of what I'm trying to get at. And I think that, I don't know if I'm presenting it to where it makes sense or not, but
I think I think you and I are actually on the same page here when I was talking about the Ember Spirit that no one's heard of before, because I think you and I are actually on the same page without really realizing it. We have the base subclass that gives you an idea, or gives your enemy an idea of what the class does, but then it's how you itemize in Dota's case, or what exotics you choose to use in Destiny's case. That is going to be that thing that really changes it to be something special rather than just all in your subclass. So, like, if I'm understanding you correctly, it'll be the subclass that determines just your baseline of expected performance, and then your exotics that say, this is what I'm going to be doing. Like, this is how I'm going to be playing. These are the changes I want to make.
Yes.
Yeah, I definitely get a feeling that the exotics in Destiny 2 are going to be much more, like, not necessarily. I think they're going to be game defining, not game breaking. And kind of like what you're saying, Souls, where it's like they're going to be perks where you're going to really have to make a choice, like, of how it's, because I think they're going to really impact the way you play. But hopefully not in like a game breaking sense, but just in a game defining sense.
Yeah, and RedWingGirl, to what you were actually discussing with the RNG nature of drops, hopefully that's not a thing in D2.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's hard to talk about all these little specifics because the game is done, and we just really need to experience it for ourselves and see kind of like how it kind of unfolds. I mean, I just really, I know there's a lot of videos out, and I think part of the problem that people are having with it is they're trying to compare D1 to D2, and I just think it's going to be a completely different play style. Everything about it is going to be different, and without knowing how it's going to be, I mean, in every sense of the way that we know D1 to be, it's just premature to talk about it. I mean, I just kind of get the sense that I don't think that they would do this because it's going to be something that's going to make the game worse. I mean, it just sounds like they're being a lot more efficient. But we don't know what the cause and effect is going to be. So I'm a little hesitant to talk about all these changes that so many people have come out and made videos on and have complained about, and because I just don't know. We don't have enough information, I don't think.
Yeah, I think that is really the heart of it, is that there's so much speculation and so much, oh, this is going to suck, oh, this is going to be boring, oh, this is getting dumbed down. There's just too much we don't know about the game. The whole, PvE is getting sacrificed for PvP. They've showed us nothing, literally nothing of PvE in Destiny 2. We've seen one strike and a part of a mission. We haven't seen the worlds, we haven't seen the patrols, the public events, the lost sectors, the solo events, I'm gonna blank on the name that Luke was talking about. That's the go to a specific area each week and get Nightfall tier rewards. How Nightfalls, any of that. We haven't seen anything really on PvE. So
Flashpoints? Is that what they were called?
The flash. Yes, thank you. The flashpoints. So it's a lot of time too until the beta comes out. We still have a couple weeks, and so I don't know if they're going to be dropping any information in the meantime. I don't know what their plan is for the rest of the summer until beyond the beta, if they're going to do a series of live streams for some of these other things, or if this is it and the game drops and we're surprised. But something that I posted on a week and a half ago, I think it was last week, I think it would be cool if Bungie would do kind of some interactive Q&A with the communities on BNet and on Reddit. And they did this in year one of Destiny, where they had a bunch of developers, and I cannot remember, it was on a specific topic, and I don't remember if it was PvE or PvP related, maybe weapon balancing, I can't even remember, but they had a bunch of, was it? Okay. Was it weapon balancing at that point, or do you remember exactly?
No, I don't. It may have.
Okay.
That does sound familiar, though, because I think I remember ammo changes coming up as well.
But yeah, it was in year one, and they had a bunch of devs go to the forums on a day, and just people would post asking questions, and they'd go in and they'd answer their questions about the game. And I think that that's something that just would be, there's so many unknowns, and there's so much that they're not going to talk about, and they're not ready to talk about still. That's fine. But the things that they've shown that, we have these questions about, like RedWingGirl, they've with Noseworthy talking about our characters and his starting a new one and how that's going to work. People having questions about the weapon system change or the character subclasses, the lore that Luke talked about and whatnot. That's things that they can go in and they could give people a better understanding of how this stuff works, and kind of eliminate a lot of, I think, the animosity that's there that I don't understand a lot of it, but it's there, and so I think that they should address it, and I think that people deserve answers. So that's just my thoughts on that.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think all of the kind of like the debate and the animosity that's been going on it could have been like eliminated if they did a better job of communicating it, or actually talking about it, like you said, and like having a discussion about it instead of, after the reveal in LA, like everything was positive, and then there was, one like obscure interviewer, I guess, who asked about Grimoire, and all of a sudden it's, Grimoire's not going to be in D2. Like, wait, what? Can you expand? Can you tell us more? Like, is it there going to be API support? What's going to be going on? Like, there's so many questions that, as part of the lore community that didn't answer. And then it creates this, it kind of builds this animosity. It's like, what are you doing to the lore? What has everything we've been doing been for nothing? And then recently, they just on a podcast, they mentioned, there's not going to be Rumble in Destiny 2. It's like, wait, there's no Rumble? Like, why not? Is Rumble coming back? And it's like, I think if they just did a better job of discussing it and saying, like, look, we're not bringing Grimoire back because we felt it didn't tell the story in the game the way we wanted to. So we're going to be expanding on these stories in game with cinematics. Okay, that sounds a lot better. We're not bringing Rumble back because XYZ. I think if they do that and actually take the time to talk, it would get rid of a lot of the negativity that's going around right now.
Yeah, well, I think that, and I said this in the post, was when they do these events like the Destiny reveal event, when they do E3, when they do their live streams leading up to new content, I just feel like afterwards that they should again go into the BNet and the Reddit communities and just have a handful of developers ready to go there and answer questions on what they've shown. I think that when someone makes a post on the forums, there's people reply to it and you discuss it. When they're putting out all this information again, and Deej said to us at the event, people were asking him about engrams and this and that, and they just wanted to talk about what they were showing at the event. And again, that's understandable. But to that extent, the things that you've shown, the things that you're wanting to discuss, willing to discuss, come discuss it with the community. It builds that trust. It builds that feeling that they are invested in us, which we know from being there. We know they're invested in us and our thoughts on the game. But a lot of the community doesn't get that. We had a unique, special experience. And I think that if they just were a little more active in going in as a company into the communities, and I think that would be the way to do it after these events. I think that would really go a long way into building up communication, understanding, and trust overall.
this is probably a little less positive thought. It would also probably help them to not make asinine design decisions. Because they mentioned in the beta, we'll have access to all 6 subclasses, and my first thought was, hold up, that's 66.6 repeating percent of the subclasses we have now. Where did the other 3 go? Are you just going to sell them to us again? Where are private matches? So it would probably also behoove them to maybe not make decisions that make no sense as well.
So I would like to get to our favorite moments of the week before we get to the end of the program here. So, Dragon, what's been your favorite Destiny moment of the last week or two?
It would probably just be a couple days ago. I haven't really been playing a whole lot of Destiny lately just because I've really done, like, there's not really anything I'm chasing. None of my friends on Xbox are really playing anymore. So, like, I'll get on and I'll try to do a trials run every now and then, but you can only do so many of those with random LFGers before you just don't really have the interest in that anymore. But I was talking to my brother the other night, and he was just like, yeah, I'm going to get on and grab all my packages for the week. And so I was like, all right, so I jumped on with him, and we did the weekly story, we did the weekly Crucible, the Strike, the Nightfall, and just kind of just the two of us just kind of shooting the shit like we used to, kind of back in vanilla, just playing random stuff. And it was fun. Wasn't focused on completing all my bounties or doing anything. I was just putting on a fun gun depending on what the modifiers were and throwing as many grenades as I could with my Void Lock and having a blast.
It is nice to just have fun now and again, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
What about you, RedWingGirl?
Well, I have a couple. One, obviously, I got the Vision of Confluence finally after doing Vault of Glass a billion times.
What?
I finally got the stupid gun.
What? It dropped? No, I was there. I
only
wasn't
have
it on our
one
third
more
run
thing.
too?
Yeah, it was on the third run. It was on the last run. Finally got the stupid... I mean, I got the Adept one, but I really wanted the Legendary because I want to use it like a lot more than just in my exotic slot. But the only other thing now I need is that Maleficent or whatever shader.
Oh, Malevolent.
Malevolent, yeah, it's the only thing I don't have. The other thing that I just think is totally kick-ass and just awesome is, this is Pride Week, and there's big Pride parade going on downtown in Seattle right now, and Bungie is there. They're actually in the parade. There looks to be about 50 employees marching in the Pride Parade. That is badass, and hats off to them for doing that.
Yeah,
I've seen some pictures on that. Looks really cool.
Yeah, they've been tweeting out all day, and that's I just saw that one you tweeted out with them all in the parade, so that's pretty cool.
I mean, it's just we talk about how we want them to be more into the community, but they can only be 50 places at once, right? And it's good to see them actively in this Pride Parade. And the other thing too is Guardian Con is going on, I think, next week, or there are people going to be going there, and they've been doing this St. Jude charity streaming going on, and they've made over $500,000. And I'm not really into the whole streamers, and I don't follow a lot of people on Twitch or anything like that, but that's really a great cause, and what they've done there and how much charity and money they've accumulated for that cause is great, and anything to help the kids I think is really cool. And so that's another Bungie community thing, and I just think it's great. I mean, I love it. I love the whole positive aspect that Destiny has brought people together and have done, and so for me, I think that's probably been my favorites for this week. What about you, Souls?
My favorite Destiny moment, outside of you getting the Vision, again on our final run through, was probably playing 2 games in a row the other night without getting disconnected and getting a zoo error.
Yeah, you need to call your IP provider because you've got problems.
Or animal control.
Yeah. No, so I've been getting what's the error that I get? It's the canary. Yeah, I've been getting the canary error for about a month now, and so it was to the point the other day where it was like every time we got put on was it Crossroads or the time what's the time
Crossroads.
map?
Crossroads.
Whenever we got put on Crossroads, I would get kicked like midway through the game, like every time. And so I run wired, and so I actually said fuck it, and I unplugged and went wireless, and it actually seemed to solve my problem, which is kind of ass backwards and weird. It doesn't seem like it should work like that, but yeah, I played like 2 or 3 games in a row without getting disconnected after that. So hopefully, knock on wood, that's solved that. But yeah, that was, I guess, my favorite moment, being able to actually play through a couple whole matches.
Yeah, but that doesn't solve the problem. That your up and down are like minimal at best, and you need to be wired. So you have to figure out what's happening in your wiring that's causing you to be suddenly kicked every 5
There's
minutes.
a canary chewing on the cord.
Yeah, there's something going on there with your system.
What about you, Painless? What's been your favorite moment?
This isn't, I don't know if it's not exactly a recent moment, but considering that, I guess I wouldn't be remiss to say that Destiny 1 is winding down, but it's the experience that I've been having with the game since about May of last year. Because one of my friends from school recently got an Xbox One, and this is her first-person shooter ever. So we've been playing the game together, and it's just been a blast taking her through all the vanilla quests and saying, oh yeah, this is how I remember it, and then doing the first mission of the Taken King and saying, hey, they had a whole new writing crew for this, can you tell the difference? And she said yes. And then sending her all the pictures of my Age of Triumph loot, because again, this is her first-person shooter, so she's not much of a raider. But like sending her the full sets of Vault of Glass, Crota's End. I haven't finished my Wrath set, but sending her the pictures of that, just being with her, walking her through the experience has been a blast.
What was your favorite part of going through and playing again? Was there any particular era or any section of the game that when you got to, you're like, it really stood out going through it again?
I mean, raids notwithstanding, because I didn't play those with her. But I still think, even though we might not appreciate it now if it comes up in like the heroic story playlist, but I still think the Taken King opening mission, the Coming War, I still think that's their best mission in the game. I think the atmosphere that they create with the introduction of the Taken, and whenever I play it, I think about like, okay, so what does this feel like to me, or what does this feel like to her, experiencing this for the first time? And that is hands down the best part of the story campaigns.
Yeah, there's a lot of great story or little campaigns in Taken King that were really cool. I mean, that took you to places like there's a place, and I cannot remember where exactly it is, but it's on the Dreadnought, and you can go there now when you patrol, and you can just actually like look out in space and just see like where the Queen's ship was exploded, and just like all of this debris floating around, and how complex it looks out there, and you're just really out there by yourself, and it's some of the best stories, I think. I have to agree. I know a lot of people liked the House of Wolves, but I agree with you. I think the Taken King had some really cool campaigns.
Yeah, I think if you just want to sit down and observe scenery, I think finding the Trenchway on the Dreadnought, that place you first land, and I think you go out there once for the Dread Patrol mission, just going out there and looking at the skybox, definitely one of the best ways to experience the game in a way that doesn't require much input on your end.
Yeah, I love, that's the one thing that I love about Destiny, is just going out on patrol and like going to all those random areas, you know, but it's not very populated and there's not any enemies really, and just like looking at stuff, you know. That's the one thing Bungie does, is that they really, the atmosphere and all of the places that they've created are really interesting, and in some cases absolutely stunning and beautiful, and you know, and hopefully we'll be able to reach a lot more of those places in D2. I mean, I think everybody's agrees that, you know, that was what we were all sold on in D1, and so I hope we see a lot of that in D2.
Has anyone ever gone worm shooting before? just like finding a hallway with a bunch of worms in it and seeing how many you can pop before they all hide.
Yeah. Yeah. You got to get them before they disappear.
I play on a lower sensitivity. I only got like 2 or 3. Feels bad.
So, Dragon, one last thing before we go. We've actually seen a couple of locations from the European Dead Zone with PvP maps in the game. There's Memento, and what is the other one that is the European Dead Zone?
Widow's Court.
Widow's Court. What are your thoughts on that area coming into the game and how it ties into the lore of Destiny?
I think there's endless possibilities. I know it's one of the cards. I think it's for Widow's Court. Widow's Court talks about the countless events or stories that left that village a ghost town. So it'll be interesting if some of like the adventures we go on are trying to discover what happened there. Exodus Black, I think, was mentioned somewhere in the story. I'm not sure exactly where it is, but the Exodus Project was the project of us trying to leave during the collapse. And so there's Exodus Blue, which is our map. There's Exodus Red, Exodus Black. So it'll be interesting if we get some more information on that. And there's just 1,000 different things they could do to bring this location to life. I'm excited.
Well, I would like to thank both of you for joining us today. Dragon, it was awesome having you back on. Thank you very much. And Painless, it was great having you on for your first visit with us today.
Good to be
here.
here.
I had a blast. Yeah, and I wanted to add too about the Guardian Con and how awesome that is. I was telling my wife today about how like last year, like how amazing it was last year. They raised $500,000 for the week for the stream, and how it was the biggest video game donation, things like that. And already we're 3.5 days in, and they've already raised over $550,000. I think it's just insane how supportive this community is. It's amazing.
Yeah, the Destiny community, I think, is very. It's kind of like, everything that's represented in what a Guardian is supposed to be is kind of like how people are within the community. So you can see the investment, I think, in the game, just in the kind of people that play the game.
Absolutely. And even just like the way the streamers, like I know you mentioned, RedWingGirl, that you're not huge on all that, but like I used to watch Twitch every now and then for like CS:GO or Halo, and there was never the sense of community that there is now in Destiny. Like in those other games, if we were both streamers, we weren't friends, we're competition, unless we played on the same team maybe, but there was no sense of camaraderie. Whereas in the Destiny community, like everyone's out there trying to help the other person, and I think that just speaks to the community as a whole as well, and how everyone acts.
Yeah, I agree completely. I mean, you get the same thing with the Dota community. The most interaction you get between streamers is, oh hey, these 5 pro players are playing in a stack and they're playing some pubs together, but that's about it. There isn't the same level of organization, at least as far as I'm aware, that the Destiny community has managed for such a good cause.
RedWingGirl, once again, it's been my pleasure to be able to do another episode of the Destiny Truthcast with you, and I am glad that you are feeling better this week. I know you were under the weather last week, so it's good that you're feeling better, and just glad to be here with you and these guests again today.
Yeah, me too, Souls. I'm glad I'm feeling better. It's been an upward battle, but I think I'm in the clear. And it was very nice meeting you, Painless. I'm glad that you reached out and wanted to come on. It's always interesting to talk to the new people who haven't been on, and people who just want to take an interest in talking about what they love and everything else. And Dragon, it's been good to have you back on and listening to all your lore stories, and it was a good episode. I'm glad you guys came on again.
Yeah, thanks. I had a blast. Had a really good time.
And everyone out there listening on SoundCloud, on iTunes, watching on YouTube, participating on the forums, appreciate all the support. Love to hear your thoughts on the episode. And if you're interested in joining us on a future episode, just reach out again to RedWingGirl and myself and let us know, because we'd love to have you on, hear your thoughts on this game. So until next week, everyone have a wonderful night. Thank you.
That's a wrap. Thanks, everybody.